And I turned over and like started to fall asleep. And the next thing I knew, they're coming in and like stabbing me in the thighs. And I started shaking from the medicine that they were giving me. Please just save my baby. Please just save my baby. Boom, I was out. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors from Germany. My grandfather was a survivor and he was also a liberator. He liberated Dachau, seeking justice for Nazi war crimes. I grew up in a Messianic Jewish home. For me, it was always very important to be Jewish. It was always very important to follow Jesus. I mean, we call him Yeshua when I was growing up. Being a good Jew is you follow the Messiah of Israel and you do what he says you're supposed to do. The thing that's always struck me about Jesus is like how down in the dirt he was in his life. You think about a Messiah who comes and we expect him to be this like big political figure and he's gonna, defeat our enemies and he's gonna bring peace. And instead what the Messiah does is like get down in the dirt and heal people's broken bodies. He was always concerned like fundamentally with people who had no money and no power. And I was always inspired by his example. I was also interested in pursuing justice. I was also interested in going after big bullies as a lawyer by practicing law on behalf of people who have no money, who have no power, who are in situations where they're being abused. That's what I can do. I went to Thailand and got drawn to an organization that was working on the human trafficking issue. So I was working with these social workers and investigators who were looking into cases of human trafficking. So what I ended up doing for months and months was just like sitting in a dark room looking at this like revolting footage of children being sold for sex in brothels to bring some measure of justice to the situation. I was just amazed to find that like this was something that I had a capacity for, and it was something that would get me out of bed in the morning, and it was something that, it was something meaningful. When your life is going really well and like you're making lots of money and your career is flying high and you're in a great relationship and everything's good, like you don't need God. What do you need God for? Like, oh, I did all that. Like, I'm so smart and special, I did it. That's kind of the attitude that I had developed. I was so excited to be a mom, and I hated being pregnant, and I wanted him out of me. Got to the hospital, everything seemed to be going fine, and I turned over and like started to fall asleep. And the next thing I knew, the room was filling up with nurses. They're coming in and like stabbing me in the thighs and trying to get my son's heart rate back up because his heart had stopped. And I started shaking from the medicine that they were giving me, and they're taking apart the bed and they're shoving me down the hall. Within like 15 seconds, somebody hit a button on the wall and I heard on the intercom, code C. What just happened? Looking up at the technician who had this put this mask on my face, and I said, please just save my baby. Please just save my baby. Boom, I was out. And then the next moment I wake up and they're like, congratulations, you're a mom. I see his little hands, reaching out of the little plastic, crib, and I didn't even see his face, and I fell in love with him. And then immediately they start telling me everything that's wrong with him. Someone said the word genetic disorder. And so the next week, recovering from a C-section, separated from my baby, wondering if he was gonna be okay, feeling just completely useless. And a nurse came in probably 2 days after he was born, and she was just coming in to take my temperature and blood pressure, and she's like, how are you? And I just burst into tears. She said, it's gonna be okay. I said, I don't think it's gonna be okay. I think something's really wrong with him. And I felt, I was at one of the darkest moments of my life. I felt so helpless, and I cried out to God. And I was like, God, what are you doing? Why did this happen to me? Where are you? I just had the feeling of almost like someone putting their hand on my shoulder. Just this comforting, I'm here. This sucks, and it hurts, and I'm here. I remember going to see him in the NICU, and he's in this little incubator, and he had all these like wires and sensors, and he had an IV in his arm, and he was like tiny and gray and shriveled. He looked like a wrinkly old man, and it was like seeing him breathe, I could see his chest move, and I felt so helpless. Before I had my son, I kind of thought of myself as like a Wonder Woman. Like, oh, there's nothing I can't do, women rock, like everything is just a challenge, an obstacle to be overcome. And when I had my son, I realized like, I'm not in control. I'm not in control of my body. I'm not in control of what's happening with my child. This is all an illusion that I have control over really like anything. Like fundamentally, like I'm gonna have to depend on God. I literally, like, God gave me this child, and he came out of me, and I like had to give him right back and be like, here you go, keep him alive because I can't. You realize like I literally can't even get it from 1 minute to the next without God's help. 5 days later, I got to leave the hospital with him like in my arms and put this tiny little person in the car seat and, and go home. Thank God everything actually turned out to be okay. Every little issue that my son had, it all cleared up, in the space of that week. I have felt in times of immense sorrow and struggle and suffering, God was there. When people are going through the most horrific trauma in their lives, God is there.